If you are lucky enough to get to Ireland for a holiday, whether you win one from us or get one yourself, you'll probably buy yourself an Irish jumper. But the Irish have found that we have been buying jumpers more for sentimentality than because we enjoy their famous knits. I've got a couple of them here, which Kirsty brought back from. This is a rather pleasant one here, just your size, Jeff.
Yes, do.
Styles like these with the high round necks and the tight raglan sleeves, like the old Irish fishermen would wear in the chilly high seas, which is pretty nice, isn't it? The women knitting them have been isolated from cities in the Aran Isles and in wild countryside of Donegal. I don't know much about such silly things as fashion, but they were losing sales because of that. Kirsty Coburn is one of our reporters just back from Ireland, and she filed this story about a government program in Ireland which is aimed at jazzing up Irish knitwear in a bid to boost the trade.
Let us pray. You're all very welcome here this afternoon to this very historic occasion when we celebrate Mass here on the site where Father Hegarty was martyred.
Traditions die hard in Ireland. These are the wild northern shores of Lough Swilly in Donegal. Way in the distance is the town of Buncrana, and all these people have trudged in the cold wind just to be here.
Forgive us our sins and bring us to everlasting life. Amen.
Their prayers are for a priest who died nearly 3 centuries ago. Yes, nearly 300 years ago. You could say everyone in Ireland remembers their ancestry religiously.
Let us ask God to pardon us and forgive us, and tell him we're sorry for our sins.
But even Irish tradition is not so easy to keep alive, especially when machines can make easy work of it. Donegal is where the Irish invented and perfected tweed. But it takes a dedicated dame to push and shove away at an old traditional loom. In Donegal, where the country life battles on, tweed and knitting are as basic as church to their lives. What was the first thing you knitted?
I knit a teddy bear, and Jennifer taught me.
Do you want to teach your children to knit, do you think?
Yes.
I've been knitting since I was 10 and now I'm 81.
And during all those years, Ellen knitted a jumper a fortnight.
My mother taught me to knit socks. I showed that to my daughter, she showed it to her daughter. And now her daughter's showing us the very modern stuff. And we're catching on.
Ellen is learning to bridge a generation gap and save a bit of the Irish economy, Irish tradition, and the pocket money of so many isolated Irish women, their daughters, and their children after them. Do you knit jumpers for yourself?
We do, sometimes. Not a lot. Haven't time.
Do you wear jumpers that you knit yourself, or do you buy
No, I do not. Never wear a jumper knit myself.
I can't imagine knitting one for anyone else.
No, I know you are. You're the opposite. At the height of the knitting, we would have had about 5,000 women knitting in Donegal. At an average earning of £20 a week, that represented £100,000 in circulation, because the women spent that money in the shops and bingo even, shoes for the kids. And when the knitting industry started to decline, that was lost. The knitting was like a drug to them. They just couldn't sit without it. And they were completely lost. One old woman I know, I went to her and she had ripped the same piece of wool and knitted it up again 3 times because she couldn't sit without doing something. And she was a beautiful knitter. And when I went and gave her yarn and pattern and helped her to put a slightly more modern slant on her sweater, she was so delighted she was almost crying. She couldn't believe it.
As gorgeous as an Irish knit can be, international sales over the years have collapsed. Rosaline Hegarty thinks tradition's great, but there's no point in knitting something that nobody wants.
It declined on account of fashion. So we had to go into fashion, change over and get people to knit fashion sweaters, keep up the sales.
So Rosaline is teaching Irish women new tricks. Rosaline's team carts wool and fashion patterns hundreds of kilometres through the wild Irish northwest.
who are knitting are women who are stuck at home. They have children or an old person to look after. For some reason, they're at home and they cannot go out to work. That £20 a week means a lot to them.
Yes. You must have been very busy, Mary.
Yes, I'm very busy.
Only one and two ready, maybe. Where do you find all the time to be knitting?
Nothing else to do.
No.
Aren't you lucky?
Well, that's the finished one. That's the finished one.
Oh, that's beautiful.
They may be jazzing up their tradition, but these women certainly aren't about to desert their beloved knitting.
Big orders, are they? 50 this month and 50 next month.
Right, girls, we better get
We definitely better get a bit of
Would you be upset if your daughter hadn't learnt to do this?
Well, I would like to pass it on before I pass on myself.